Hi, I'm Jeff Thompson of Motorcycle Riding Concepts. This is Mark Payton. He's going to be doing our demonstration for us. And we're going to talk about braking. We've done everything that we need to do up to this point to ride the motorcycle in a parking lot. We've learned how to find our friction zone. We've learned how to move the motorcycle under power. We've learned how to stop using our rear brakes. And now we're going to talk quite at length about how to stop the motorcycle properly. Before we do that, we really have to talk about the surface of the roadway. In addition to being a motorcycle instructor, I'm a certified accident reconstructionist. And I can't tell you how many times I've been to the scenes of motorcycle crashes where motorcycle riders didn't properly use their brakes to learn how to stop the motorcycle. The surface of the roadway here in Northern Virginia is about 90% blacktop. Well, blacktop is made up of gravel and tar, which mix together with other chemicals that harden up so you can drive on it. Well, what is tar made out of? It's made out of oil and grease. It's a bituminous material. What is a tire made out of? It's made out of 80% rubber, and the rest of it's mixed together with other components, some of which is tar and grease. Well, what happens when you heat those two materials up together? They become greasy. When you slide a tire on the surface of the roadway, it actually burns a molten patch of rubber onto the ground, and for just a split second the motorcycle actually goes just a little bit faster. So what we're going to teach you how to do is how to use your brakes properly and become your own anti-lock braking system. When you're riding down the road, you've got a tire patch on the ground of each tire probably about the size of a $50 or a little bit bigger as you're riding down the road. What we want to teach you how to do, and if Mark is going to sit forward on the motorcycle here as a demonstration up on the tank here, he's going to compress the front end of the motorcycle a little bit. What we're going to get you to do is to learn how to bring that front end down smoothly and progressively so you can spread that front tire out onto the ground and get more friction surface on the roadway. That'll help you stop a little bit better. But before we do that, we're going to give you a demonstration of stopping distance so you'll understand how each brake works independently. There's a lot of information on the internet and in books that talk about high side and what you should do when the motorcycle rear end starts to out track. We believe here at Motorcycle Riding Concepts that you can modulate your brakes and keep the motorcycle under control. So think about that as you're riding your motorcycle. When you go to use your brakes, if the rear end starts to lock up and start to float out, remember the old analogy of my dad teaching me how to drive the pickup truck when I was a kid. In the snow, when the rear end starts to step out, what do? You steer in the direction of the skid, and that's exactly what you do on a motorcycle. When you're riding your motorcycle and you have to stop, pick a point off in the distance to focus on and keep your handlebars pointed in that direction, and the rear end of the motorcycle will stay with you. So the next segment, we're going to have Mark actually come down and learn how to stop the motorcycle properly. Okay, as Mark approaches this time, he's going to come down the parking lot at about 20 miles an hour, and at the white cones, he's going to depress his rear brake and skid like a normal street person would do without any training at all. So here he comes. Finds his friction zone, speeds up in first gear to about 20 miles an hour, and just skids the rear brake until he stops. Now, that's normally how people on the street stop their motorcycle when they've never had any training at all. I always tell our students when we do this demonstration, that's probably about 60 feet. Well, at 35 miles an hour, you're traveling about 43 feet per second. Think about that as you're riding in your car even. At 35 miles an hour, it takes the average person about a second and a half to decide what they're going to do when they encounter some type of problem out on the street. 1.6 seconds. So at 43 feet per second, they've already traveled quite a distance, haven't they? This time he's going to come down and do the same exercise with one exception. He's going to apply his rear brake at the cones, except this time he's going to stop his bike by keeping the rear wheel rolling, using his body as an anti-lock braking system. So here he comes this time. Okay, this time he's used his rear brake, kept his rear wheel moving. You saw it skid just at the end. Well, that's because all the weight has shifted forward and he's got maximum braking achieved. But the big point that we should make a point here is the distance that it took by using the rear wheel and keeping it moving. Look at the distance that he was able to stop the motorcycle in without skidding it. That's 20 or 25 feet right there, 20 feet. That could be the difference between you crashing a nice new motorcycle or taking a ride to the hospital in the ambulance, or worse. This time he's going to come down, he's going to use his front brake only. Notice the difference in the stopping distance, quite a bit. As he approached, he applied his front brake, and he came to a complete stop, putting his left foot down. But look at this distance. This distance is important compared to that distance, but look at this distance compared to the first distance, front brake only. Big difference there. You're looking at 50 feet. That could be the difference between, again, you taking a ride in the ambulance or worse. This time he's going to come down and stop using both brakes properly. As Mark approaches, he will apply both brakes and stop, lickety-split, putting his left foot down. Now, dramatic difference between using both brakes and using just your rear brake. When Mark approached the cones the last time, he applied both brakes and came to an effective stop by putting his left foot down. You're going to want to practice this when you get your motorcycle. Take your motorcycle into a parking lot and learn how to stop that motorcycle by practice. Now, remember, when you use your brakes properly, think about it like you're cutting an orange and trying to squeeze the juice down into a glass. If you take that orange and squeeze it hard, what happens to the juice? It goes everywhere. But if you take it slow and squeeze it nice and controlled, you can get that juice to fall right down into that glass. And it's the same thing with using your front and rear brakes together. Practice. We want you to keep the wheel rolling. And again, at Motorcycle Riding Concepts, if the wheels start to lock up, we want you to release and readjust quickly but smoothly. You never want to slap the front brake. It's always a controlled stop.